Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Meeples and Miniatures Miniature Review Show. In this show I'm going to do something slightly different from normal, in that I'm not actually reviewing a miniatures range, I'm actually reviewing a miniatures painting service. And that service is Reinforcements by Post. Now this is a company run by a guy called Neil Keneally, who's been in the wargaming hobby for 20 years or so. The company itself is called Modatis Limited and it's located in Chittagong in Bangladesh. Now, these guys offer several different painting services, one of which is supplying ready painted armies, and that's specifically what we're going to be looking at today. Now, when it comes to ready painted armies, they do a complete range of different scales and different periods. They do 6mm, supplying Bacchus figures, 15mm World War II, 15mm Vietnam, 15mm Moderns, and then in 28mm, they do American Civil War, Zulu Wars, and Napoleonics, and it's the Napoleonics range that we're going to be concentrating on today. Now the figures supplied are line infantry units, or at least that's the bulk of what he does, and this can be produced for the Austrians, British, French, Prussians and Russians. So if you ordered some of these models, let's see what you get. So you received the box in the mail, here it is, you open it up and are greeted with a view of, well, for want of a better word, things that look like Rice Krispies. Dig deeper into this and boxes appear. So as you can see immediately, the contents are incredibly well packed. Nothing's actually going to move around in here at all. So there's two types of boxes. This is the smaller one of the two. If we look inside again, we see more packing material. I was quite surprised at this actually. I was expecting the figures to be packed in bubble wrap, but no, more of these Rice Krispie-like polystyrene packing material. And as you can see, once you pick out what's inside it, we see a unit of French line infantry. Now there are two sizes of boxes that came in this box, a shorter one and a taller one, and I was puzzled as opposed to see what was in the taller one. As soon as you open the box, it immediately becomes clear why you have a taller box. See from these couple of pictures that obviously the taller boxes contain the standards. Once you start digging around inside the packing material, you'll see there they are. So the figures are very well packed. There's not going to be a lot of movement at all, and that alone is very, very impressive. It does mean that your figures are guaranteed to get to you without being damaged. So, an excellent start. So let's have a close look at what you get. Now, Neil sent me two units. The first off was a unit of French line infantry, which is what we see here. And we'll go through a series of pictures which will show you some close-ups of the figures, what the actual painting job actually looks like. Now, if you're wondering, all these figures are taken from Old Glory's 2nd edition range. As you can see, the figures are all in the classic March Attack pose. And as we take a look around one of the bases, you can see the level of detail that comes as standard with these particular figures. Now, this is what they call their connoisseur quality of painting, which is, as they describe it, basically base coated and dipped. But even so, I think you'll agree there is a very decent level of detail available on these particular figures. You can see from the details of the command stand here that the details of the drummer are picked out really well. The uniforms are done great. I think it captures the French line in campaign dress really well. And if we take a quick look at the bases, you'll notice that they are 45mm by 40mm. So not quite square bases, but pretty standard base size. And let's move on to the second unit that Neil sent to me, and these are the British. As you can see, a very similar level of detail. A little bit more uniform, these particular figures. But again, you can immediately capture from the details you can see on the flank companies that these are a pretty good standard of painting. One thing to note as we look around these particular bases, especially, are the standard of the basing. Well-based figures always seem to make a difference. And the basing on these figures are pretty good. Again, as we look around these particular miniatures, you'll see it's a pretty decent paint job. As we take a closer look, you may be a bit concerned that it looks a little bit dusty. Don't worry, that's simply the dust off the packing materials. It's worth noting that these figures could do with being brushed down once they've been unpacked, just to get rid of these flecks of dust. But again, I think you'll agree as we take a close-up look at these figures. The detailing, etc. It's a pretty decent standard of paintwork. I think the British drummer is especially nice. Once again, looking at base sizes, you'll see 45 by 40mm. So it's possible to build up a decently painted, well-based army, or at least the core of it, quite quickly. I did have one concern, however, and that's with the flags. As you can see here, as you take a close-up look at the British flags that were supplied, they're actually printed out on computer. I'm not quite sure if it's just a problem with the image quality that they've used for the picture is printed, and maybe they've just got a smaller flag and then blown it up. But as you can see, the lines, especially on the Union Jack, are very pixelated. I know it's a small detail, but I think this does let down the figures a little bit. So again, let's look back at the British and French figures side by side. Again, the command stands and the infantry stands. I think you'll agree, if you put these on the table, they'd look pretty good. What I call a very decent wargamer standard of painting. Now, as well as their connoisseur quality in painting, they also do what they call a museum quality, and we've got an example of that here with the British officer. Now, whereas the connoisseur quality is base coated and dipped, this is fully shaded and highlighted, and I think the difference between the two is immediately apparent, especially when you start comparing things like facial features, the cuffs, the trousers, that sort of thing. And especially if you put the officer side by side with the unit, the difference is startlingly apparent. If you wanted to go down this way and give your commanders that extra bit of care, then there is a second higher quality of paintwork available. Okay, so that's what you can expect to get if you order, for example, their ready painted 28mm Napoleonic range. But how much can you expect to pay? Well, looking at their prices at the moment, if you're buying them ready painted, it will cost you $3 per figure. $2 a figure if you order over 200. So the 24 figure unit that you see here will cost you a total of $72 before shipping. Now, if you ordered over 200, that would come down to $48 plus shipping. And, well, you may ask what the shipping cost is. Well, that is quoted at cost, so that's something you'll have to obtain at the time from Medartis themselves. But let's say you're ordering a pack of Napoleonics, and you're ordering over 200, obviously, because it's a Napoleonic army, you need quite a few figures, don't you? The standard Old Glory pack March Battalion 30 figures is $32. So that is provided to you unpainted. Ordering the same pack of figures, but fully painted by Reinforcements by Post, effectively costs you an extra $1 a figure. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty reasonable. Especially with something like Napoleonics, where you need to put out a lot of figures onto the table. I think $2 to $3 a figure, fully painted, is pretty reasonable. And as you see, the actual quality of the figure painting is pretty good. The museum quality paint jobs are more expensive. You're effectively looking at something like $5 a figure for Napoleonic foot, and for cavalry, you're effectively doubling the price for both their standard connoisseur quality and their museum quality. So for Napoleonic cavalry, for example, their standard paint job, their connoisseur quality, is going to cost you $4. And that's if you provide the figures, okay? That's off their standard price list if you provide the figures. Now, how do you pay? Well, you can pay by international money order, drawn against UK or US banks. They also accept PayPal up to $800. As far as turnaround time is concerned, they say 6 to 8 weeks. Now, if you want to see any more details of the services they provide, a full breakdown of their costs, then that's all available on their website, which is www.reinforcementsbypost.com. To my mind, I think you'll agree, at a time when it seems in this hobby we are more and more rushed for time, and especially with a period such as Napoleonics, which is so figure heavy, just the lure of being able to put units out on the table painted to a decent standard for not too much more than the standard price of the figures themselves, I'm sure you can see is appealing. It would be interesting to see what sort of job they could do if they could work on things using, the Perry and Victrix plastic box sets, for example. So I must admit, I was on the whole very impressed with the standard of miniatures that Reinforcements by Post do. I was particularly impressed with the care with which they're packaged. So if you're one of those gamers that are happy to use figure painting companies, then I think these guys are certainly worth checking out. To my mind, they produce a well-priced, decent product. Well, that's it for this show. I hope you found it useful. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.